We are back again. We'll say part two.
Part two.
Part two. Just
Part two.
getting more in depth, bringing you guys on board with Strength We Trust, giving you guys just an in depth look at how we're going to be building things out going forward,
Step by step.
step by
Zero
step.
to hero.
Exactly, man. We're just here to kind of keep this thing going. We'll get into more details as we go along. We just kind of want to lay a good foundation to get this community growing.
Yeah, man. We just want it to all make sense. So when we last left off, we gave you guys an introduction to strength. What does that look like? The different types of strength. So now, okay, now you understand strength. How do you get started? What does that look like? There's different ways to program for that. So we'll just give you some basic outlines. There are many ways. It's not a cookie cutter thing. It's not a one size all fits everyone because everyone's starting from a different place. So
Absolutely.
you just have to kind of like feel it out, get in there and see what works. And that's the only way you're going to be able to find the ideal program by starting. So then how do we do that with a program? If you don't have information, if you don't have you're not keeping track of the things you're doing, it makes it much harder to adhere to. So we're just going to give you some ideas for how you can get that process started.
Yeah, and just to kind of follow up on that before we actually get into like the nitty gritty, is not getting caught up in the cookie cutter environment that we're in right now with the fitness industry, right?
There's a lot of tribalism.
There's a
It's like
lot,
if you're not doing this, you're doing the wrong thing
absolutely,
and you're not going to succeed.
and
It's not it.
absolutely, and I just want to make that very clear that you don't have to do what somebody else is doing for your health and well being, right? You have to find a program that you can follow and you can stick to for a long period of time
That's you enjoy.
that you enjoy
If you don't
actually
like
doing.
it, then you're not going to stick to it.
Exactly,
If you go in there and you're suffering, you're killing yourself because you feel like you need to change your body, chances are you're not going to keep going. Those
exactly.
guys that you see who, look like superheroes, they probably actually like doing what they're doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't get up at 5, 6 in the morning to go hit the gym, do these 2, 3 hour workouts. So you need to find what you're going to enjoy doing because that's the only way you're going to be consistent.
Absolutely. And just to kind of like, I guess, go in depth with that, we all have clients from all different backgrounds, right? And there's not one program that looks exactly like the other,
No.
right? We have to be able to adhere to people uh, with whether it's injury history, health history, right? Age, shape, size, experience. There's so many different factors that you kind of have to take into consideration before you hop into a program,
Yeah, and
right?
I like to talk to them about what they like to do outside of the gym that requires physical activity so that the program makes sense to support that.
Patterns, exercises, rest periods, like the complexity of what you're doing. It should all correlate to what you're doing every day. And if there isn't a direct correlation to that, why are you doing it? Right. So that's kind of what I want you guys to keep in mind when you're thinking about building out your own program or hopping on a program with a coach or a trainer as ourselves or any other program that you might see online. Is this fitting to what I'm doing every day? And if that's not the case, it's probably not going to be your best fit because we talked about it last time is you're not working out for today, you're working out for tomorrow,
Yep.
right? You're not doing this workout thing for a quick fix. You're doing this to be well off 10, 20, 30 years down the road. So you want to make sure that you're on board with something that you can sign up with long term.
Yeah, focus on sustainable fitness,
Absolutely.
not
Absolutely.
short term, not for the season, not for, I mean, you could do that, but just know that your program will have to adapt for you to be able to stay consistent with just moving.
Yep. And I think so I guess we can kind of give people like a little skeletal structure on just movements in general and how they should fit into said program. I think this
Yeah,
is kind of
yeah,
universal, right?
yeah.
So uh everybody should have some form of a hinge pattern. We'll break that down,
Oh,
right?
before you get into it, um, little like history, like a lot of the programs that people follow came from bodybuilder programs
Yep.
because bodybuilders were the epitome of fitness for a while because
Very long
no one
time.
else was going to the gym. It was just like the meatheads, right? So
Nope.
like and then we got to the day and age where now it was about functional fitness. I don't really like the whole term
Term.
functional fitness, but that's I'm not going to get into that right now. But point is, I just want you guys to understand why or where the whole, one muscle group a day came from, particularly for the guys, because the guys, that's who really really sucked this all in and was like, okay, chest Mondays and then having a whole arm day. Not saying that that can't fit into a balanced program, but it's just important to know where it came from. Okay, so like now, for most people, like I recommend like 2 to 3 days of strength training where they're doing total body. And now in those programs, there are certain movement patterns, not muscles, movement patterns
Yep.
that should be inserted into that program to make sure it makes sense.
And that's exactly what we're about to get into is movement patterns, right? Not approaching programs based on purely exercises.
Mhm.
And I think that's what we get caught up now, or the general population does, in that they see workout programs as certain exercises that they must do, whether they're good at them or they're not good at them, right? And we don't want you to do that, right? We just want you to think of it as more of movement patterns. And that's what I was getting into in that filling your programs out with some form of a hinge pattern,
Mhm.
some more form of a knee dominant exercise,
Mhm.
some form of a push, some form of a pull, and then some type of core or stability.
Yeah.
You can literally build out, and this is for everybody, right? Advanced, intermediate, beginner. You can build out a program from those 5 movement patterns and you will never fail.
Yep, and we could, break those down further,
Yep.
but if you do those things, you will have a good foundation. So
Absolutely.
again, hip hinge,
Yep.
think deadlift. I'm not going to stand up and demonstrate right now, but don't worry. The page will have plenty of videos, demos. We'll talk about what hip hinging looks like, how to execute, what it feels like. Some type of knee dominant movement, upper body pushing, pulling, and then core work. You do those 5 things, you're on the right track. So
Exactly.
start there. So write those categories down and just start filling in exercises that check those boxes.
Absolutely. And if you're checking all 5 of those boxes, what you're doing is you're not just getting stronger, but you're building a well-rounded foundation that is going to stop you from getting hurt, right? And we talked about this on the last one was that a lot of times people get caught up in working in what? One modality,
Yep.
right? And you become really well and proficient at one modality. Now all of a sudden you're lacking in another, and then that's where the asymmetry occurs, and that's where the injuries start to occur and catch up to you. And that's what we want you to kind of avoid.
And you can look at any training modality, or you could look at like runners, you could look at bodybuilders, you could look at basketball players. Each one of those groups have injuries that are very common for those particular groups of people. Why? Because they become so specialized in what they're doing that they significantly increase their likelihood of certain types of injuries. So if you're not any one of those athletes who are doing it for money and performing at a very high level, probably not a good idea to specialize. You want to find a balance that allows you to keep doing what you're doing if you love doing it for a long time.
Absolutely. And that's what we said. If you're filling in those blocks and you're not missing a beat and you're hitting all 5 movement patterns on a consistent basis, your likelihood for injury is so low. You're just putting yourself in a really good space to be able to do this for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
And just for clarity, you're not gonna eliminate injuries.
No,
We want to be very clear. You won't eliminate injuries.
less
Whether
likelihood.
yeah, you won't. There's that.
Less
Yeah, like
likelihood.
you cannot avoid injury. So if you find a program that says eliminate injury, fraud, get away, run away as fast as you can.
Red
Don't
flag,
don't
red
don't
flag.
don't fall don't become a sucker to the marketing. I'm telling you, it's all BS. Because whether you work out or you don't work out, you're gonna get injured. And I'd rather be the person who works out get injured because I'm gonna recover faster and I'm gonna learn from that. The person who gets injured who doesn't work out, their quality of life just became diminished because now there are less things that they're comfortable doing.
Absolutely.
For somebody who's already in that groove and has the right mindset, they're gonna learn from that. They're gonna apply different things to their training. So now they understand their body better and acquired a new set of tools to make sure that they can keep performing for the long haul.
Absolutely. Right. Like you're never gonna fully avoid getting nicks and dents along the road.
It's part of the game.
You buy a new car, you pull off the lot, it's game over as soon as you pull off the
Oh,
lot.
I've been in New
Right?
York City for how long? As soon as I park, on the sidewalk, dings, dents. I came out one time from the gym and this lady was actually backing up into my car, moving it. I'm like, yo. She's like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, not hit my car.
And
But
guess what? It's relative, man. You're gonna run into nicks and dents in your body in your training journey. You're not gonna be able to completely avoid them. I don't care what you're doing, how good your trainer is, how good that program is, how good that coach is that you think you have. You're gonna something along the lines is gonna happen.
yeah,
Now, your ability to handle that stress and still get yourself back to the gym is going to be completely different based on your baseline of strength.
yeah.
And this is why we talk about how important it is to find a program that you can keep doing for longevity. Because I've run into injuries along my years tenfold. I shouldn't be walking right now with half of the stuff that
I
I've been.
had to relearn how to walk. I actually tore my Achilles.
Exactly.
Relearning how to walk is a humbling thing. And for, I'd say, the vast majority of people, you don't appreciate movement until you lose it.
There you go.
Until you get injured and you lose the ability, let's say, reach up over your head or walk or be independent, you don't appreciate it.
A
So
thousand
like
percent.
every time you can go into the gym with an able body, be grateful and take full advantage.
Yeah,
Even if you're not going to the gym, go walk. One of the most underrated ways of moving out there. Go walk. It's easy. It
absolutely.
doesn't cost you nothing.
Exactly. And it's such a, I guess, uh, a low on the totem pole tool that people just kind of like put to the back burner and they don't just appreciate that what a 15-minute walk could do for them, right? A
Man,
20-minute walk, what 10,000 steps will do for you.
yeah.
How many of you guys out there are getting 10,000 steps a day?
Actually, you know what? Right now, part of my programming is making sure I hit 10,000 plus steps a day leading up to my wedding, just so I could reduce my body fat a little bit. That's all. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm doing the
Mm.
same workouts. I'm eating more or less the same thing. All I did was increase my step count, and that's how I'm bringing down my body fat. Nothing complicated. Very simple, straightforward stuff. But not to go too far off on a tangent.
Yep.
I want to get back to
Just the
programming.
programming and like, and
Um,
then what your movements and the order and such that you should kind of go about things,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So everybody say you're in the gym for an hour, right? We'll keep it real simple. We'll keep it very universal. So everybody has a general approach of how they
Yeah, we
want to
just
step
want to
into the
give you a
gym,
framework to work
right?
with, some general guidelines.
Exactly. So you step into the gym, you don't really know what you're going to do, right? But you have a script. And what I want people to think about is your warm up should always be tailored towards the movements or patterns that you're going to be doing for said day or exercise. A lot of times, these people will come into the gym and they'll just do some random general warm up, right? They go for a run on the treadmill, they get on a bike, they do the row
They go
machine,
stretch out the
they go
hamstrings.
stretch out their hamstrings and their lower back. Please stop doing that. It's not helping you on your deadlifts. I promise you it's not. And just keeping in mind that your prehab or movement prep should always tailor towards the movement patterns you're going to perform. Just want you to keep that in mind, right? Regardless of what we say going forward. So your warm up should consist around, I would say, 5 to 8 minutes. It's an appropriate amount of time for you to prehab the body. Now, if you're going to be doing, let's say, a deadlift, that's going to be your first hinge that we mentioned earlier, right? That means you want to prep that hinge pattern, right? Before performing said action. Your muscles are always,
They're always on.
they're
They're
always
always
on.
on.
They
So
don't turn
this whole
off.
activation thing is
Yes.
like,
Let's not get crazy. Your
yeah,
muscles don't have a light switch.
yeah, like
You can't turn them
it's
off
all
and turn them
very
on.
nuanced.
Thank you.
Don't get caught up in all
Yes,
that.
more than likely, you're not getting the best connection that you would get otherwise,
Mhm.
right? Now you'll get to more to that knee dominant portion of things, right? Now we're getting into your basic squats, split squats,
Yep.
some type of lunge pattern, whether it's lateral, front, sagittal. We'll get into that as well. But again, beginners looking at 2 to 3 sets, keeping volume at a relative spectrum, whether it's 8, 10, or 12, something just to reinforce the pattern. We're not really looking for load as our first variable.
Because remember, we mentioned this in the last episode that you're practicing these moving patterns. So you want to give yourself, enough repetitions to practice performing the movement patterns. Ideally, first rep should look like the last rep. Everything should be identical and feel the same, besides the effort level. The effort level will increase as you fatigue, but the movement quality shouldn't change dramatically from the beginning of the set to the end of the set.
Yeah, we want to paint the same picture.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. We just want this. We want the picture to look the same from rep 1, 5, 6, 8. Doesn't matter, right?
I like that actually. I'm gonna say that to
Oh,
somebody.
paint the same picture, man. Yeah, I got a couple jewels. Got a couple jewels.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So after that knee dominant portion is done, then after that, we said that we're going to go into like your upper body push,
Yep.
right? Now that looks different for everybody, right? And again, we don't have to go to load. Load is, in my opinion, load should actually be the last variable or the later stage variable that should be added to
Mhm.
somebody, right? There's plenty of steps you can take before load becomes a variable. So you have your push up,
Yep.
right? Even just being able to hold a plank position is
Yep.
working the same muscle groups
Yep.
there. You have overhead type of presses, horizontal presses,
Mhm.
right? Single arm presses. And all we want to do is just work a push, right? We just want to stress the anterior or front portion of your body here.
Yeah. Push things away from your body, any angle.
Exactly. And again, following that same rep scheme, especially if you're a beginner, right? Working within that 8, 10 to 12 range, it's enough volume for you to feel that stress, but it's not too much where the quality of the rep starts to kind of fall off,
Yeah.
right? Once the push is done, you also have your upper body pull,
Yep.
right? So now we're just working that posterior backside of your body. Now we can work that at many different angles, right? You can have a vertical pull, right? Something that is directly above your head. You have your pull ups, your lat pull down. We can work that at different angles, which will break down as well. You have your horizontal pull, right? Something that is directly out in front of you that you're pulling towards you. Then you have your another vertical pull, but from the bottom, right? Pulling some type of load from the floor towards you. All working that backside of your body, but just in different angles, which is going to create different stresses on your body.
And then lastly, core. And your core, is your trunk. Core is everything from your hips to your shoulders and in between. So that includes your hips, that includes your shoulders. So something like a plank, side plank, super bands, those are all great starting places for strengthening your core. And you can mess around with different time. But I think starting out, it's good to just make sure that you can do 1 minute plank. Once you do achieve a 1 minute plank, then you can really open up your exercise library when it comes to core because now you've established that you can create stability for that time period and you have that base level of strength. Then you could add movement, then you could add load, then you could start to create rotation, but start with stability first.
Absolutely. And I think we should actually harp on a little bit here is you made a quick point about it is that your core is what?
Everything from shoulders to hips and in between.
So I kind of want
Not your abs alone.
to, okay. So
That's very
that's,
important to understand.
and that's what I want to kind of tap into for a second. I know it's a little off with the programming because I think that there's a very bad and poor misconception with our core is what we see in the mirror, right? It's that six pack or lack of that people will have, right? And it's all they look at is this area right here. And I think we have to really get out of that mindset of that's all that our core is made up of, right? Our core encompasses everything, like you said, from the shoulder all the way down to right below the hip, right? And I think once you learn that foundational plank, now how do we go about ways of stressing all of that,
Mhm.
right? The entire chain, vertically, horizontally, transverse, any type of rotation work, like you said. And I just want you to keep that in mind, right? Now, when somebody says core work and they're building out a program, don't just think about sit-ups, right?
Oh
Or
man.
flexing your spine. It's you're setting yourself up for a lot of bumps in the road. Let's say
Yeah,
that.
let's just say that. We're gonna leave it. We're gonna leave it at that. But sit-ups, not my favorite.
Yeah,
Not
not
my favorite.
not at all.
There
Right.
is a way to perform a sit-up and make it effective. I don't think there are any bad exercises, just the wrong exercises for the wrong person.
Yes.
But generally speaking, for general population and a lot of the people I work with and see in the gym, skip the sit-ups. There's a lot more effective ways to train and strengthen your core.
Yeah, I think just to put like a period on that, it's just to for the general population, just to understand your core is everything. Don't just look at it as something that you see in the mirror. Your core encompasses everything that you do. You deadlift, you squat, you push, you pull, and your stability. Everything that we named prior to core, core encompasses all of that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it starts there.
It starts there. So with
Before you move, your core lights up.
And I think that's why a lot of times people will save that for the end and think that their core wasn't doing work the entire hour previously.
Yeah.
And getting in the mindset of that body awareness and understanding like if I'm going to do a deadlift, How am I going to perform this deadlift without my core? You can't. It's right there with you the entire time. So being able to find that connection, I think is going to help people not just get stronger, but just have a better general awareness of their own body.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good guess breakdown, I guess, initially, I would
Yeah.
say.
So we're just gonna leave you guys with that to think about. Give you guys an opportunity to implement some of those things and shoot your questions at us, and then we're just gonna keep building from there.
Absolutely. So again, any questions that you guys might have, feel free to hit us up at Strength We Trust on Instagram, email our YouTube channel, my Instagram, of course, MikeFit19, as always, my boy Rashawn.
At Rishaun.English, RISHAUN.English.
Like, share, follow. Peace and love, guys. Strength We Trust.
Love you guys. Peace.
Strength we trust.
I love it.
Sweat, baby.
Sweat.
And we're rapping.
Hey.